Joining me to discuss is Representative Wendy Horman. Representative, thank you so much for your time today. Were you surprised? I want to start with what happened on Thursday. Were you surprised at the leadership vote?
I was surprised it reached that point, but honestly, things had been bubbling for a while, years, definitely before session. I think we've reached a point in our political discourse where we think it's okay to disparage others, and there's some active campaigning going against sitting legislators right now that I think is played into what is happening in the House right now.
Specifically with the removal of Representative Blanksma as Majority Leader.
Yes.
From your perspective, how much did the new budgeting process and concerns over that process play into that vote?
I think it's a symptom and not a cause.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that levels of political discourse and civility where we're attacking one another outside of session before we get to session, some new lines that were drawn in the sand with new caucuses and new groups and new PACs, definitely have been playing into everything that's happening in the House right now. And so I think the budget conversation became a symptom of that division. I think the leadership conversation became a symptom of that division as well.
You know, you bring up new PACs that go after sitting incumbents, and this is something that, you know, Speaker Moyle, when he was Majority Leader in 2012, was involved in a very similar political action committees that were targeting incumbents. Are there different factors here that led to Representative Blanksma's removal and not Moyle's removal at the time?
I guess I didn't know it was Speaker Moyle. I thought it was the sitting speaker at the time.
Speaker Denny at the time.
Yes,
right.
Because they definitely came after me as a candidate, so I remember that vividly. You know, there are ways to disagree without being disagreeable, but when we are going after fellow colleagues outside of session in ways that are maybe derogatory or less than civil, it certainly has impacted our environment in the House this year.
You know, bringing it back to the Budget Committee, you saw your own revolt last week while you were absent, actually, with new budgets being introduced and passed by a majority of the Joint Committee members. Did that move surprise you?
Yes, I was shocked to hear what had happened in my absence. I was out ill and recovering. So I was shocked. I would never have dreamt in a million years of pulling a surprise motion on Madam Chair Bell or Chairman Youngblood. There's certainly room for disagreement in the Joint Finance Appropriation Committee, and it's always a legislator's prerogative to bring a motion that they have not disclosed to others, but to not make the chairman aware of that is not normal.
And we discussed this a little bit last week on the show, but for those who missed it and who aren't quite familiar with it, the Budget Committee, as we went over earlier in the show, had already passed maintenance budgets under the new process, but a majority of members voted to introduce new budgets, and they were essentially competing budgets. I haven't ever seen anything like that before, where there were competing budgets without one pulled back first. Do you think that will affect your relationship with the committee moving forward?
I hope not. I have spoken to almost every person at this point. There's one I haven't had a chance to speak with yet, but every one of them has come to me, helped me understand what they were trying to do, and you're seeing today that they're taking those budgets that they had previously agreed to support and voted yes on, and now carrying them on the House floor. So I believe the healing has begun. The only way to maintain, you know, it's a mark of our character of how we treat other people. And I think the golden rule applies here, and that's how I'm working with the members of my committee, is trying to have those conversations so we can move forward.
And we focused just now on the education budget because that generated a good amount of debate and questioning specifically for you. But we saw a number of budgets pass over the past couple days in both the House and the Senate, those original budgets, not the new substitute budgets.
All 10 maintenance budgets have now passed the House, most on a party line. Public schools had 3 Republicans vote no on those budgets today. Otherwise, straight party line. I think we have though we started explaining this process last fall, we had meetings about it in November, phone conversations in December, caucus meetings explaining the difference and showing it. Change is always hard. And we can explain and explain and explain and talk. And as you know, it was a party line vote coming out of JFAC the very first time on all of these. And so it wasn't until after that that I began to hear rumblings about possibly flipping their votes to go against these. So I did go meet with each person and tried to understand why there was some of the same drama around JFAC rules, and that was going on between House and Senate leadership, which I was not a party to. So Senator Groh and I were trying to navigate some choppy waters with everything that was going on, but I think we are headed in the right direction now.
We've focused a lot on this one part of the budgeting process, in which you have the maintenance budget, and then the committee, and then the legislature as a whole considers line items separately. That's just one of many changes that you implemented this past year, and we've gone over that multiple times in the show. But generally speaking, was this too much change too quickly?
I don't believe it was. We, again, communicated starting last October with an email, had meetings about it in November, did an interview with KTVB this week sometime, and a random citizen said to Joe Paris, after 20 years, JFAC is finally exciting. So, you know, some people are excited about that, others are not, but this was always intended to be an iterative process where we're going to take certain steps at this stage and then we'll take additional steps. For example, our JFAC staff did a study and revealed that only about 19% of all the money that we spend in Idaho gets a look during legislative session. That's not okay. We don't have public testimony in JFAC. That's another flaw in our system. So there are additional steps that we will be taking to make sure we're fully taking care of the taxpayers' money. So this summer we'll be looking at that 81%, going systemically through each agency's base budget to find out exactly what's in there. In the meantime, one of the really exciting parts of the changes is our new budget website. You can find that from going to legislature.idaho.gov and clicking on budget information. You can see revenue, you can see spending, you can see federal funds, you can see audit findings, you can see Transparent Idaho. You can see where every dime's going in every state agency. So those are some of the exciting changes as well.
One of the main concerns from your colleagues was that there are going to be some critical ongoing programs that don't get funding because they weren't included in that first round of maintenance budgets, that lawmakers can say, you know what, we set this budget and we can go home now. I know you can't guarantee that anything will pass. Are you confident, though, that those critical pieces of funding will pass?
I am 100% confident that every request will be considered. Whether it should be granted or not is up to the committee. If JFAC ever sends a budget to the floor that has overspending in it or unnecessary spending of taxpayer money, we haven't done our job. And so what I can guarantee is happening and is currently happening, that every request is being evaluated for its necessity and whether it's nice to have or need to have. So as the committee makes those decisions, they'll put those in these secondary budgets and we'll send them to the floor. If the floor votes them up or down, if they vote them down, we'll bring them back, sharpen our pencil, and go back to work again like every other year.
This isn't a budget-specific question, more looking at the Republican caucus as a whole and the relationship between the House and the Senate. Do you think this dysfunction will affect how the rest of the session will play out and affect possible legislation that we haven't seen yet?
I hope not. I hope that the healing has begun this week and that we can remember that our duty is to serve the people of Idaho and not fight with each other. And I saw that happening today in the House, and I hope that's the process moving forward.
All right, Representative Wendy Horman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.